You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Good evening and welcome to the Nottingham Forest page, for our Facebook page, Nottinghamshire Live and Garibaldi Red podcast. My name is Matt Davies and I'm joined by Reds legend Garry Birtles, back by popular demand, genuinely. No, you were the star of the show in our last podcast. To talk about a very eventful night at Nottingham Forest. Lamouchi out, Hughton in, the king is dead, long live the king. Do comment below and we'll read a few of those out and put your questions to Gary. But Gary, what's your initial reaction to the events of tonight? You happy with it? Hughton a good appointment?
I don't think you're ever happy with seeing somebody get the sack, but we said before, it's the nature of the game of football. When things don't go right, managers get very little time nowadays. They used to get a lot longer. And with the start they've had to the season, nobody's surprised that it's happened. It's sad. But, you have to move on, and that's the way it is. And Chris Hughton, I think, will be a popular appointment. He's managed in the Premier League. He's got teams promoted before, so he knows what it's about. He knows the Championship. And that is a massive bonus when you've got a manager coming in.
How do you think Forest fans should remember Lamouchi's contribution? Mostly positive, you think, despite the big disappointment at the end of last season, or not?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because everything went wrong at the end of the season. Everything was going well until, those last few games. And I think he did make mistakes in those last few games. I said before, I thought Michael Dawson was underused in those games where he could have come on. He's very vocal. He's a leader and he's good in the air. And we conceded goals, as we have this season, from set pieces and balls into the box. But yeah, we were nearly there. We nearly made it into the playoffs, which is a huge improvement, from what we'd gone through before. So you have to thank him for that, for getting us that close. It is sad, but now it's a new chapter. You have to move on. That is the nature of the game. It's brutal at times, and just hope Chris Hughton can turn things around, lift everybody's spirits, which is really needed at the moment, and move us forward.
There's a whole raft of comments here, so I'm just going to, we'll just get a few put up on the screen. Martin Lever's cracking decision. James Tinsley, so happy about Chris Hughton. CJ Brand, Chris Hughton, a good appointment. Nick Brailsford, can the owners give Chris the time he needs to turn it around? I mean, that's a good point, isn't it? That they've made so many signings. They're in god-awful form. And he's got to hit the ground running, really, hasn't he? It's kind of the nightmare scenario for a new manager, but then a new manager never comes into a club in a good situation normally, does he, Gary?
But the thing is, it was quite a good situation until the last moment, the last day of the season. So all of a sudden, you don't become bad players overnight. I think he got a little bit lucky at times last season. Managers do get lucky. We're a team that's set up to get a goal and then try and defend it. And sometimes that's very difficult at any level to do that. So he's got a squad who nearly got there. He's brought some decent players in, to be fair. McKenna at the back. He's brought Arter in. There are players there who've made a little bit of a difference. And there are still players in that squad who may be able to flourish under, somebody new who maybe realises a bit more about their potential, what they can do for the team. And it'll be interesting to see, how quickly Chris can get in there and get things turned around.
Lee Tilston says he wishes Sabri all the best, loved his passion and enthusiasm for the club and felt he was a bit unlucky. He wanted Hughton after Martin O'Neill's departure. I mean, you might have said it when you were talking initially there, but do you actually think it's the right decision to get rid of Sabri?
I think at the present moment, with the international break, it was maybe the right time because confidence can only get worse, really. You can work on it for the time you've got the international break, but you've still got the same mood, the same way of playing. I think if Sabri had tried to change things a little bit more drastically than he did, wasn't any plan B. And we saw against Cardiff, the second half performance, when he changed things up, was quite good. And you think, well, if he did that in the games after that, then there might have been a change. But he didn't. He went back to normality, taking a striker off, putting a striker on. And I think that's what maybe finished him with the fans and, the hierarchy at Forest. So, yeah, always sad to see a manager go. He seemed a really nice guy. And you just hope he gets another job somewhere else. But the owner, like I said before in the previous podcast, everything is in place off the pitch. The club is in a wonderful place, and we're very lucky to have an owner in these circumstances like we have at the moment. The newsstand and everything, we mentioned it before. And if Chris can be part of that, guiding the team through all that and marry it up with what's going off the pitch, then it'll be fantastic for everybody. He's got the experience. He has the knowledge of the Championship, which is, we've always said, is vital. You have that knowledge, you've got half a chance. You can hit the ground running.
Matt Hallam says, proven manager for a change, must be licking his lips. The squad happy with this appointment. Picking on what you said there, I mean, there's nothing wrong with foreign managers, but it would have been difficult to go down the foreign route this time, wouldn't it? With Sabri not knowing the league and the big changes to the squad, you think they needed to get someone in who knows the Championship inside out then?
I think it's a different animal in the Premier League because the money's so, ridiculous. So a manager coming in, whether he's British or he's foreign, has got a good opportunity maybe to make things happen. But the further you go down the structure, it becomes more difficult. And you're desperate, I think, for somebody with knowledge of any particular league to be in that position. Other managers have proved it wrong. You can come in from abroad, you can do well. But I think the Championship, is one of the toughest leagues in world football. And you have to take on board everything. You have to look at what gets teams promoted. And if you do that, you've got half a chance. I think that's one thing maybe Sabri didn't do. Look at the previous teams who got promoted and, take sort of something from those managers and say, well, he did it that way. And he did it that way, where we can mix that into what we want to do. And I'm not sure he did that at times. So, as I say, Chris knows all about that league. And I'm sure he'll just come in quickly with his backroom team, whoever it may be, and, hopefully turn things around, because we have to do it quickly because of the situation. We're lucky that Sheffield Wednesday are down there, with no points. They got that points deduction. But you can soon get cast adrift early in the season. So we don't want that.
Chris Hughton obviously has got a track record of success in this league. And I think he's a two up top type manager. He doesn't have the reputation for playing that kind of style of football. Do you think that matters at all? Because Forest fans like attacking football, but do they really care as long as they win? Is that the cut and thrust of it all?
At the moment, it's just about winning games. It's not about being pretty. You can get pretty later on. The thing now is to turn it around very quickly and just get that confidence of one result. One result can make a big difference to a squad, and it'd be interesting to see how he works with them during this period on the training ground, because that's going to be vitally important. He's got to get them on his side very quickly, and you hope they can do that, because you now look at the squad and there's a bit more strength there. There is quality in there, and maybe other players just might get a chance under Chris, who didn't get a chance with Sabri.
I mean, picking up on what you said before, Michael Dawson, would he be someone at the top of that list, do you think, for you then?
Well, we all know Michael's, he's one of the older professionals, but he's still got a vast knowledge of the game, and maybe he wouldn't play all the games, but he's somebody who you'd love to have in your squad, to be round about the place. And I'll reiterate what I said. I was surprised he wasn't used a little bit more at the end of the season because of his knowledge and his experience and his vocality. He's very vocal, and he wasn't used enough. Will Chris, have a chat with him? I'm sure he will do, because he has got still a lot to offer, and he can help players around the team, around the squad, the younger players. I'm sure, he's great around the training ground. Yeah, so why not pick his brains? And I'm sure Chris will do that, because you don't get the success he had without doing things like that.
What do you think about the timing of it? Because they've signed this raft of players. They've loaned out João Carvalho. From what we understand, Lamouchi wanted these players, or virtually all of them. Is it a bit weird for you that, Chris Hughton's coming in with players that aren't his? Would it have been better with hindsight, which is easy, to have made this move a few weeks ago and given Chris the chance to bring in players?
I think because of the nature of what's going on in the world at the moment, and football of last season, it finished very abruptly, then it started very abruptly, and it was difficult for everybody involved in the game, no matter what league you're in, no matter what country you're in. It was going to be difficult. Some do it a little bit better, some can acclimatise to things like that, others can't. And anything that you do at the moment is just hit and miss in sport and football. I've been watching the French Open tennis, and it's so difficult for professional people at the moment maybe to do what they think is normal. So there's no right and wrong in that. What happened, the timing of it, it's just results, as it's always been. And the results just haven't been good enough. We only scored our first goal at the weekend. And, after the capitulation at the end of last season, it was going to happen. And now, we just have to say to Sabri, thank you. And Chris, come in and just get us back on the straight and narrow, get us winning games and get the unity back, because it's a great football club. Everything is right off the pitch. Let's get it right on the pitch, and, we could be very successful.
Let's put a comment up here. A couple of Gaz Wisher. Do you think they'll pull Carvalho back from loan, or maybe loan Silva? But I don't think they can. I'm not sure how that would work with Carvalho, and I can't see Silva coming back. But that's just me. Gary, someone here, Greg Howard, talking about the backroom staff changing. A lot of people saying Colin Calderwood, because he's got that relationship with Chris Hughton. He's obviously a Forest manager of years gone by. Would you like to see that kind of person coming back in? Chris is going to bring his own staff in now, isn't he? You've
got to give Chris, what he wants, because this looks like the manager who the owner and the football club think now is going to be the one who will lead us back towards the Premier League. So, bringing somebody in like Chris, who's with his experience and Premier League knowledge as well as Championship, you're going to have to give him free rein. You're going to have to give him, who he wants to bring in, his backroom staff. And I'm sure that will happen, because why shouldn't it? Every time somebody gets a new job, they're allowed to bring their own people in. And I would think it'd be no different with Chris.
Well, this is me thinking in hindsight again, but the timing of Chris Cohen's departure is a bit unfortunate, because it would have been nice to get him on the Forest first team coaching staff, really. But that's the way it goes, I guess. What about in terms of formations and that kind of thing? I saw someone asking about a more attacking midfield and things like that. Do you think Chris is going to have a good look at it now over the next couple of weeks of the international break and just see what he's got to work with?
Well, I'm sure he'll ask questions. He'll ask people, because that's the best thing to do. You'll ask people at the club maybe, what they think of certain players. He will have a knowledge of certain players. He'll have been watching things, I'm sure. If he thought he'd any chance at all of getting the Forest job, because it was a precarious position for Sabri, then I'm sure he would have looked at the squad before and gone through the players and to see, what sort of players he got and what sort of positions. And hopefully that, I don't think he'll be able to get Carvalho back and, the loan players that have gone out, because obviously contracts have been, agreed, and that's happened. But coming in there, I think he'll have a real knowledge of players who are at the football club already, what they can offer, Nottingham Forest on a regular basis. And he'll be, desperate to get into his stride, get on that training pitch, see what he can see within this international break. And he's got to come up with his best 11 pretty quickly, because you've got to hit the ground running. You don't want to be in that bottom three. Unfortunately, Derby won and they were taking the mickey out of Forest at the weekend, and we don't like to see that. But we've got to turn that round, and we've got to take the pressure off and start moving upwards and towards the top of the table. And that's completely possible. We've seen the teams at the top at the moment. Reading are up there. Bristol City are up there again. So there's no reason why Forest can't put a run of games together. And with that squad now, that I think it's possible. It's just about picking the right squad, sticking with the right team, and being brave and being a bit more adventurous than we were before. Because you have to say we weren't adventurous. We're a team that if we scored first, we'd sit back. We wouldn't go and try and maybe win a game. At times, we get lucky and we get quality in the box, and we'd win games by maybe more than we should. But you can't keep doing that. You can't keep winning football matches by being a little bit too negative. And just hopefully that will change pretty quickly, and set us in the right direction.
Do you feel at all sorry for Lamouchi, or do you think he was the master of his own downfall?
You always feel sorry for managers who get the sack, because it's a brutal business, football. But I think some managers don't always help themselves a great deal. I mentioned Norwich in the podcast before. I've watched Norwich quite a few times last season before the lockdown, and they looked great at times, but they played one up front. And when they went behind in games, they didn't play two up front. They always bought one off and put another one on. And so for me, they didn't mix it up enough. So there was no surprise to see them go down. I think you have to try something different when the things you're trying aren't working and glaringly obvious not working. And I don't think Sabri maybe did that or hooked onto that and realised that it did need something a little bit different, because teams found us a little bit predictable. Yes, we were solid at times. Yes, we had good players. Yes, we, in some games, it had come off for us. But I called him a lucky manager at times. I don't like saying things like that, but I think we were, and that isn't in hindsight. I thought at times last season we rode our luck, and teams do that. But in the end, we got caught out. A couple of silly mistakes. And I think he'll maybe regret it when he looks back at not maybe taking more advice on, how to go about things in the Championship. But, it's gone now. It's happened. Chris Hughton's come in. Let's all get behind him, and let's just hope we can turn this round and, start moving up that table. And if they do start moving up that table with him in charge, then, I think a lot of teams will start looking over the shoulders and think, right, okay, they're now showing the potential that everybody realises they've got, and, we can make another run on getting up to that top six.
I'm going to let you go in a second, Gary. There's one more point I want to put to you, which I think is an interesting one from Ben Carlin. Don't forget the transfer window isn't closed yet. He may change that defensive look a bit. Do you think it might be, he might want to make signings, but do you think it might be a bit counterproductive to make even more signings and shake up the squad to an even greater extent?
No, I don't at all. I think his name in the game is right up there. And I think, if he wanted players to come to the football club, he'd have a good chance of bringing some quality in, because, they know Chris Hughton, they know he's managed in the Premier League. I think he's been a little bit unfortunate, without a doubt, to get the sack from, the football clubs he's been at. And, so that respect he'll have from footballers may just tempt players to come to the club, because, again, they'll see that the owner is very, very ambitious, and he is backing the team, the club to the hilt, and he's doing everything right. I keep saying off the pitch, but it's so important. If you get it right off the pitch and then you marry it up on the pitch, you've got a very formidable football club, going forward. And if Chris can come in and turn that round, then I hope I've got a big smile on my face, along with all the Forest fans.
Excellent. We're going to let Gary go. Thank you to everyone who's watched along. Over 300 people with us at the moment, so that's fantastic. We'll be back with a proper podcast tomorrow with one of I think he's your friend, Gary, Darren Fletcher. Can I call him your friend?
Fletcher, I used to work with him. Of course I did.
That's right, no, yeah. So, he'll be back on to give us his insight tomorrow, early afternoon. So do join us again for that. It'll be good to get Darren's perspective. Thank you to everyone who's watched along for this kind of impromptu podcast. Gary, thanks very much for your insight as ever. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure, as always.
And we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks very much, everyone.